Fair to say, F1 car launches haven't really delivered on what we really wanted to see. It's been pretty much by the numbers so far, either last year's cars in different colours or a glimpse at maybe some small tweaks, but, well, launch season finally spluttered into life over the last day. In fact, with teams posting various things on social media, some of them useful and some of them a little obscure, I think some of them are getting giddy. Let's find out more. I'm Martyn Lee, and to fill us in is our man Jonathan Noble. So first of all, we have got a look at a new car. Well, sort of. The new AlphaTauri livery. What do you make of it? And this fashion for launching liveries in New York City?
Yeah, well, I mean, I quite like the fact that teams are being bigger and bolder with launches. You know, in the past, it would be, you know, maybe issue a small press release or do something at the factory. So it's a great thing for Formula One that we're having these launches in New York. I mean, Red Bull, for all, you know, the slight annoyance that it's what it claimed was the RB19 was the RB18, you know, holding an event in New York, all the impact that's made for Formula One, great thing. AlphaTauri chose to do a livery launch. I mean, it was quite late last night, and it's an AlphaTauri livery, so, you know, they're kind of hemmed in by their design, just as Red Bull are. So a bit more red, a little bit different, but it's a livery. We know what the team's going to look like. No harm unveiling something in New York, making a big song and dance of it, even if it was a bit late for us last night.
Absolutely, but clearly geared towards a US audience, and hey, no problem with that. The US has fallen in love with Formula One in more recent times, and that's a good thing. It's a big year for AlphaTauri, isn't it? What have they got to do this year?
Well, better, I think, is the short summary. I mean, 9th place in the Constructors' Championship last year, not especially good enough for a team that's the sister team of Red Bull. You know, a lot of resource. It's not too tight on cash. It's done well in the past. It had, you know, experienced driver in Pierre Gasly, a promising rookie in Yuki Tsunoda, and it just didn't click. It was too up and down. The car had some, you know, clear strengths and clear weaknesses last year. A lot of highs, awful lot of lows, some reliability issues, some more dramas. So I think what it needs to tap into is consistency, and probably a pretty bold car step as well. I think the concept they went for last year wasn't especially spot on. It was tweaked mid-season. I think as we started seeing more hints of all the other cars as we've gone along, everyone's shifting towards what Red Bull did. Even the Ferrari teams that have gone down the concept of the Ferrari power unit, you know, we saw the Haas. There's hints of Red Bull in that design. Alfa Romeo has kind of done this halfway house between the Red Bull and Ferrari. So I think AlphaTauri basically, and you see what Red Bull did last year, work out where those advantages were, do something different, push on, do better, and make sure, you know, Yuki Tsunoda delivers every weekend, doesn't have those bad weekends, and Nick De Vries can pull off the kind of performances in Monza. I mean, I've got great hopes for Nick. I think he's quite an exciting talent. He's got tremendous experience with a lot of Formula One cars, having only been a reserve, amazingly. We'll see what the year brings, but definitely they've got to step up. You can't be Red Bull's sister team and finish 9th in the Constructors.
Well, today wasn't just about AlphaTauri, though. We also got to see some other things. This is where the social media posters, you feel like they're just getting a bit giddy because we saw a factory selfie. We've seen a short bit of video of cars rolling out on track. Let's get to Haas first of all. What can you tell us about this?
Yes, I mean, Haas have, I think, have done what teams should do for launch season. I think they've done what I call the Dulux approach. It does what it says on the tin, basically. They said they were having a livery launch on a 22 car. They had a livery launch that was a press release picture. Keeps everyone happy, no faff. Shakedown at Silverstone, and they published some images, you know, in the factory beforehand, and then some images from the track. Works perfectly. We get to see a car, some interesting designs, a bit of departure. They've worked a lot to try and save weight, improve aero, shift the concepts a little bit towards Red Bull. So I mean, we've had that. Then this week we've also had the Red Bull came out. From what we could see from a short little video. So I mean, Red Bull had that launch in New York. Said it was the RB19 when it looked to be the RB18, but you can never tell if they, you know, if you put one chassis sticker on an RB18, is that classified as a 19? Who knows? But so we've seen a glimmer. We saw a spy video as well of that car, but I think we're going to have to wait probably until testing in Bahrain to get a proper look at the details of the car. Because I think once you're at the front end of the field, it's those little details that make all the difference.
Yeah, when Red Bull post and say, here's a picture of our new car on track, well, something a little more useful would have been good, but hey, we'll take what we can get. Luckily, we had those spy shots. Anything else particularly that's stood out so far for you?
I think what was quite interesting, especially, was kind of the way Alfa Romeo things panned out, because they had kind of this hybrid thing of unveiled a car, or pulled the blankets off a car that was last year's car repainted in the current livery, which caused a little bit of confusion. Then they had some renders of the car, which pretty good renders actually, because you'd have to look pretty closely to realise this wasn't a proper photograph, but they were renders. And one of the most intriguing aspects was a kind of serrated floor. They had something that looked like out of Wacky Races, like tons and tons of serrated floor, which I thought, fascinating solution to these new floor regs. So they're doing something different. Then their car rolls out of the shakedown last week without that floor. So haven't quite worked out yet. Was this kind of a red herring decoy to send rivals up the wrong path for a few weeks? Was this something they looked at initially? Design direction they were looking at, couldn't get it to work and have abandoned it. Is it something they're keeping in their back pocket for, does it work at high downforce circuits or low downforce circuits? Something. So I think we'll have to wait to speak to people properly to find out. But I think it's one of those little facets of launch season, is that, nothing's especially, we don't know what's real, what's fake, what's a deliberate conspiracy, any of that, until we actually get to proper action in Bahrain.
I'm not sure the teams can ever win, because people say, hey, where's the big launches that you used to do with the Spice Girls turning up? And then, well, we get launches in New York with extreme sports and fashion shows and a big song and a dance, and then people complain that they're only seeing livery launches. So maybe the teams are always on a loser with this. But generally, in terms of launch season so far, how are you finding it?
I always find launch season probably the most bizarrest, hardest, surreal weeks of the year. I know they often say that the driver market shenanigans is silly season. So, last year we had the driver silly season, which centred around, that Fernando Alonso, Oscar Piastri switch. Then the winter we had the team principal silly season, that remarkable day where it seemed everyone wanted to have a new boss. But I think launch season is the real silly season, because you get this mixture of not quite sure what teams are showing us. You're not quite sure whether what they're telling us they're showing us is what they're actually showing us. You're never quite sure if what they're showing us is, some game they're playing to fool the opposition, but not telling teams. And ultimately, I wrote a piece this week for Autosport, talking about Cyril Abiteboul a few years ago. Had a Renault launch which had no car at all. It was just a very close-up shot of a car and some stickers. And he basically said he got so annoyed at kind of the media and fans analysing car renders they'd revealed, claiming that it hadn't made enough progress, they hadn't done a good enough job on this front, for a car that wasn't actually real. So this wasn't a car that was ever going to race. It wasn't a car that was tested. It wasn't a car that appeared in the first race. He said, just wait until we get these cars that appear in the tests. So I think it's always this season of everything's back to back. Later on Monday, we've got a McLaren launch, we've got Aston Martin launch on the same day. Then we've got Ferrari Tuesday, Mercedes on Wednesday, Alpine holding a kind of nightclub party event in London on Thursday night. So it's just this crazy week. Every day is different. Doesn't have that crescendo that you get for a Grand Prix weekend, where practice, qualifying, race, it's all building up to something. It's like every day just all merges. You get tons of content because people haven't spoken all winter. So you speak to drivers for 20 minutes, team principals for 20 minutes, technical directors for 20 minutes. So much content and not enough days to use it all. So you end up with this kind of flood of stuff, having had a very quiet winter. And then we get spat out the other end, straight into testing, and then probably all the cars will look totally different to what we've seen this week anyway. So that's launch season.
No doubt about it, they will look different. Sorry, Cyril, but we do love launch season as Formula One fans. We just can't wait to see what these new cars are like, even if it's just a glimpse on Red Bull social media of the back end of their car, or even some spy shots. But no doubt that any track running can be useful, even if these aren't the final finished products. No, they're absolutely not. But even in those runs last year, just the beginnings of porpoising and those bouncing effects were coming through even before pre-season testing. So the cars are on track. It's always useful running and data. We can't wait to find out more. John, thank you so much for joining us for a weekend edition of our launch season videos. If you like what we're doing, or you'd like to see more like that, always leave a comment below. What do you think of launch season? You got John's thoughts. What are your thoughts? Do you want to see the real thing, or do you like this little bit by little bit approach? Let us know in the comments below, and give us a thumbs up if you like the video. We'll make more like it, and we'll see you on the next one.